Hi guys, welcome back to Hobbit Books. My name is Matt, also known as Miggins on Twitter. And today, yes, I do know I always say this, but I'm very excited to finally get this video out to you. I have brought together the Avengers of booktubers to come and help recommend to me some audiobooks. Yes, these are some of my all-time favourite booktubers, and I hope that maybe this might be a series going forward. It was really fun, and I'm so grateful to all my collaborators when I reached out to them and said, look, I'm kind of in a historical fiction mood. I would love to get your best recommendations for some historical fiction audiobooks or some fantasy with a historical fiction kind of slant. I've got 5 of the best booktubers out there. I cannot wait to dive into these recommendations. So without further ado, I'll let you guys watch the videos. I'll give you my thoughts afterwards, and at the end, I'll put a poll in my community tab on my channel and let you guys help me decide what audiobooks should I pick. And without further ado, over to you, Taylor. No, it's not Taylor Swift. It's even better. It's Taylor from Maed Between the Pages. Boom.
Hey everyone, I'm Taylor from Maed Between the Pages. I'm very happy to be part of this video. I would say my recommendation for like a historical fantasy audiobook would be to read the Memoirs of Lady Trent series, the first one being A History of Dragons. If you like Jane Austen, if you like Pride and Prejudice, those vibes, it's very much that style of storytelling and that setting, but with dragons. Not the type of dragons that, you ride or like the big fantasy typical dragons, but more dragons that are creatures in this world that people can study. And it's a very science-y book as well, and it's fascinating. The audiobook narrator is also fantastic, and I think it's available on Scribd, basically anywhere that you can get audiobooks, it's available. And I would highly recommend it because the wit is just off the charts.
Thank you so much, Taylor, for that recommendation. Now, I've got to admit, I'm not a Jane Austen kind of guy, right? I've never really touched those books, but it sounds interesting. I do love a good bit of wit, and I do want to push myself out my comfort zone, so it's certainly one that I'll consider at the end, maybe to push myself out of something that I don't usually read. So, it turns out I may have accidentally deleted the recording introducing the next booktuber, so I'm going to do it again in different clothes. So this next booktuber, they may just have the sexiest bookshelf in all of BookTube. And they are also perhaps the one and only booktuber that may surpass the energy and enthusiasm that I try to invest into my channel. It is the one and the only Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads. Oh, my throat.
Hey Meggins, Andrew's Wizardly Reads here, and I just want to say thank you for inviting me on the channel to kind of recommend an historical fiction / fantasy book to your viewers. Now for me, there could only really be one book that I could choose, and I decided to go David Gemmell, Lord of the Silver Bow. This is book 1 in his Troy trilogy, and it's really the crowning jewel in his bibliography because it's the last series he ever wrote. And it's of course a classic retelling of the Troy conflict. We have got many beloved characters that appear within this trilogy. We've got Odysseus, we've got Achilles, we've got Hector. It is a fantastic retelling that just kind of delivers this historical fiction style story with a very kind of fantasy undertone because it uses the mythology within that time setting to kind of give you a little bit of a fantasy flair. Which, of course, for me, as a fantasy reader, I really enjoy because we've got the seers, we've got prophecies, we've got, the intervention of the gods and things of that nature, all while delivering you a powerhouse historical fiction tale that seems almost more plausible than what Homer put on the page, all those years ago. I have so much love for this trilogy. The audiobook is narrated by Thomas Judd, and it is an absolute delight. He delivers a fantastic performance where he just brings the story, the world, and these characters and the conflicts therein to life. I truly think this is something special. So I hope that some of your viewers decide to pick this one up and give it a try. And thank you, of course, for having me on your channel.
Andrew, that was an absolutely fantastic recommendation. I love that the first two was kind of one with Taylor that was kind of very different from what I normally read. And Andrew's one is one that is really kind of more that I would usually kind of read. Although I haven't really read a kind of big epic yet. I'm currently in the process of listening to two kind of Norse-inspired kind of epics on audiobook. But at the time of doing this, I hadn't listened to any epics, and from what I learned at school and from kind of listening to stuff from Alan talking about it on his channel Library of Alexandria, I've kind of had a thing that I want to know about the Greek and the Trojan War, and it sounds really cool and epic. And David Gemmell is an author that is very well known in fantasy, almost legendary status, pun not intended. And I haven't got around to him yet. And Andrew talks about him all the time. So, you know, this is definitely one that's going to be very, very high on the list for my next audiobook. This really kind of fits the mood that I'm in right now. This kind of big, epic retelling. And so thank you so much, Andrew, for that recommendation. And thank you once again for coming on the channel. Now, next up, we have what I like to call the Canadian booktube whisperer. She has a channel full of fantastic indie authors and a really soft-toned way of speaking that just draws you in. And she's such a friendly personality. One of my best friends on booktube. It is, of course, the one and only Kayla from Kay's Hiddenly Reads. No, I mixed it up with Andrew. It is, of course, the one and only Kay from Kay's Hidden Shelf.
Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and my channel is called Kay's Hidden Shelf. I talk about books, both fantasy, sci-fi, and some other genres thrown in there. But thank you to Matt for inviting me here today to be able to share one of my book recommendations for you, an audiobook as well in the historical fiction genre. And that recommendation is In the Shadow of Ruins by Tony DiBaggio. This is a self-published historical fiction with a little sprinkling of fantasy in there. This takes place in ancient Nigeria, based on a folklore from West Africa that the author had grown up with. This is a retelling of two half-brothers, King Jide and Prince Olise, in their power struggle for the throne of Yoruba. At 362 pages, there's a lot that goes on in this, as this is a power struggle for the throne. There is depiction of war, there's great action scenes in this, lots of political scheming and plotting that goes on, leaving the reader with a lot of what ifs and guessing what might happen next. And with a multi-POV story, we see perspectives from not just King Jide and Prince Olise, but several other characters that give us a wide view into the situation and story that we're seeing here. There's so many interwoven stories that are mixed into just this power struggle between two half-brothers. There's a lot more that goes on, and with these two brothers' personalities being as distinct as they are, we get a great look into their motivations, their choices, and how they became to be as they are. Ultimately, this affects a lot of situations and the political scheming that goes on, and seeing the impact of that from all of that buildup was really well done. The prose also captures the tone and the culture beautifully within this story, making for an immersive read. The audiobook also worked beautifully with this prose, as it made it feel like I was sitting by a campfire hearing this story. Now, it did take me about 25% of the way in to become invested in the story and the characters. The pacing and the prose were just new in the same sense of The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. I had a similar experience with that, but once I got past that 25% mark, I thoroughly enjoyed it, the characters and the story that were treated to. With plenty of action, lore, betrayals, politics, This story immerses you in the traditions and culture of West Africa along with their gods. This was a fantastic debut and start to the Fractured Kingdoms series. I'm looking forward to continuing with book 2, and in the meantime, if you decide to try this, I hope you enjoy it. Thank you again, Matt, for having me, and as always, take care of yourselves.
Wow, Kay, thank you so much for that recommendation. I absolutely love a good bit of politics in my fantasy and historical fiction, and it sounds like there's a good bit of that in there. And also, I've seen this cover around a lot on Twitter, and I gotta be honest, I can be a little bit of a cover snob. I know, but a good cover does really attract me, and this, guys, is an absolutely fantastic cover, and it sounds like a great story with some great characterization and plot going on. So thank you so much for that, Kay. It's an honor to have you on the channel. Now, next up, if you've been on BookTube for, say, more than 5 minutes, you've probably heard of the most epic saga of all. The tale of the heroic Dr. Fantasy and the dastardly Professor Fireballs. Now, I have one half of this dynamic duo on my channel today to recommend me some amazing historical fiction / historical fantasy books. It is the one and only Professor Chase.
Hello, Matt. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make a recommendation to you for a work of historical fiction. The one I am choosing is Sarum by Edward Rutherfurd. This is a book that is not so much a story of a particular point in time as it is a story of a particular place. And Rutherfurd takes us from thousands of years ago up to the present in the environs of Salisbury, England. So we get to see the construction of Stonehenge, for example. It takes us all the way through medieval times, up to the 20th century. So it is a profoundly interesting look at the patterns of human behavior throughout the ages. And it is a book that I found very fascinating and fun to get to know a particular place in the world.
Philip, that was absolutely fantastic. Just like all the other recommendations, it's going to be so hard to choose. You really hit the spot there, Philip. You know, it's interesting, I actually spoke to the Brothers Gwyn. I tweeted them over on the old Twitter, and I said, hey guys, is there anything that, you know, kind of covers a significant period of history in England? Is there a series that I can start that goes kind of like from the beginnings, from like the kind of Druid kind of age when we were all running around like Saxons? Excuse me, I don't know my history too well, all the way through to kind of like modern times, or even there's a significant period of history, and there wasn't really anything. But actually, Philip sounds like he's kind of hit the nail on the head right there. This kind of goes through several periods of English history and seeing the changes that go through. And as someone that absolutely adored history as a subject and finds English history fascinating, this sounds absolutely wonderful. So thank you, Philip. I would never have heard of this without you. That was an absolutely amazing recommendation. It's going to be so hard to choose. I'm going to need your guys' help. Now, next up, we have a guy who, his channel makes him sound a little bit rough, a little bit, gusto. But he is one of the sweetest men on BookTube. It is, of course, Josh from Red Fury Books. Red Fury. I don't know what I'm doing. Take it away, Josh.
Hey Matt, or should I say Miggins, because we met on Twitter before you had a YouTube channel. It's Josh here at Red Fury Books. I am so happy to give you a recommendation, actually a couple recommendations for historical fiction. Historical fiction is my second favorite genre behind the fantasy genre, and there's a reason why I'm holding 3 books here instead of 1. So let's get to it. The first recommendation I wanted to give you, and I want to tell you about it, but feel free to discard this, because it's a chunker, and I know you're the Prince of Chunkland and all of that, but James Clavell's Shogun, I looked it up, and I know you want to do an audiobook. It's a 53-hour audiobook, so I don't want to do that to you, my friend. It's a really long audiobook, and I don't know how well this would translate to audio because of all the Japanese names. It might be tougher to keep track of characters. So even though this is my favorite read so far this year, I've read 97 books so far this year, and this is still at the top, I'm going to say you can pass on this one. So why do I still have 2 books? The next one, I'm afraid someone else might pick it. So I have a backup. So my real recommendation is going to be The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell. This is the first book in the Warlord Chronicles, which to me is one of the best trilogies in any genre that's ever been written. It's a retelling of the King Arthur legend from a different perspective and from a historical fiction slant. So all of the magical elements are explained away in real-world explanations. And this is fantastic. When I read this 5 or 6 years ago, I didn't know anybody that had read it. It's starting to get a lot of good traction on BookTube, which I'm so happy to see. But because of that, someone else might pick this. So just in case, I'm going to give you an alternate selection from Bernard Cornwell, and that's this book called The Archer's Tale. Now, in the UK, you'll probably find this as Harlequin instead of The Archer's Tale, which is the original title. We have these Harlequin romance novels in the States, so they couldn't call it Harlequin in the States, so they changed the title. But this is the story of an archer, an English archer, just before the 100 Years' War is beginning, and he's searching for the Holy Grail. And it's the beginning of a trilogy that actually has a 4th book afterwards, but it's a fantastic book. Bernard Cornwell is my go-to for historical fiction, and I think you would love this book. So whichever one you choose or your readers choose, I hope that you enjoy. Thanks for having me on. See you next time.
Josh, I mean, you bowled me over there. I've asked for 1 book, and you're giving me 3 for the price of 1. Unfortunately, Audible doesn't do that. But they all sound fantastic. Now, Shogun, I've looked this up. It sounds absolutely fascinating. I don't know much about Japan. I've got friends that are into kind of like Japanese culture and things, but I think it sounds like a really fascinating kind of history. And I get what you're saying about the names, that it might get confusing with the audio, but you know, this one's really this one's ticking in my brain, so I might just keep that one on the side. But your other 2 recommendations now. Bernard Cornwell. I have only watched The Last Kingdom Season 1, which I think contains the first 2 books of the Last Kingdom series or saga. I do have the first book of The Last Kingdom, but I haven't actually read it. But actually, The Winter King is actually one of the books that's on my Audible wish list. So you really know me well right there, Josh. But they both sound really fascinating. I love kind of like this Arthurian myth, but also this guy kind of searching for the Holy Grail. That really gets me. I love a good Holy Grail story. I haven't read many, but I don't know. Ever since India and the Last Crusade, I've just been like, yeah, the Holy Grail. So, man, this is going to be a really difficult choice. So thank you, Josh. It's wonderful to have you here. So, it appears that I've made the same mistake twice. And so I'm going to introduce our sadly final booktuber. Now, this booktuber is one of my booktube heroes. I've been following them for a long time, and they built such a wonderful community. They bring such warmth and enthusiasm to everything they do, and I've got to be honest, he's a bit of a smooth talker. It is, of course, the one, the only, Mr. Jimmy Nuts! Can I be your wrestling announcer, Jimmy? Pick me, please. No? Oh. Say never meet your heroes. Darn it! Love you, Jimmy.
Hobbit whole books. You come to me and you say, Jimmy Nuts, I love the Fantasy Network. I need to know what is your historical fiction recommendations. And I got to tell you, my friend, I'm going to go with the Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. Has some of my favorite characters of all time, any genre, no matter what, all-timer list. I mean, Merlin is just incredible. Durfy is so stupid. And it's great. The audiobooks are fantastic. They are as grim as any other books I've read. Joe Abercrombie, R. Scott Baker. Well, maybe not R. Scott Baker, but still pretty grim. The stakes are very, very high. And it's hilarious. There's a lot of funny moments in there. You will not forget this cast. You probably won't forget the plot because it's Arthurian legend. So, you kind of already know the plot. But still stands out in my mind, especially this year, as one of my favorite reads. And the audiobooks, like I said, are just fantastic. I hope you enjoy it if you pick it up, and I'll see you again real soon.
And so we have another for the Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. Now, once again, fantastic recommendation. I love the Bernard Cornwell love out there. I really need to find time in my TBR to actually get to the books that I brought. I need to stop buying these books, guys. Stop enabling me. Stop enabling me. Don't. I love it really. Thank you, Jimmy. That was such a wonderful recommendation. I've really got to think long and hard on this. There's so many wonderful books that I've shared here, and whichever one I pick up, I'm sure eventually I will get to them all, and perhaps you as well, dear viewers, have found one that can become your new favourite. So now comes the time when we figure out, what do I do? Well, like I said, it's going to be a tough decision, so you guys are going to help me out. I'm going to put up a poll on my community tab, and you guys are going to help me figure out which book I should get. So I'll put it up for about a week, and then I'll decide what audiobook I'm going to get, and I'll put a little video up on the channel about it. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you to all my collaborators out there. You have all been wonderful and all been stars to put this together for me. I've had a blast doing it. I can't wait to do it again sometime soon with other booktubers as well. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, share. It really helps grow the channel. I would love to grow a community here. Let me know, have you got any recommendations that these booktubers didn't recommend? Or have you listened to or read one of these books that you liked as well? Or perhaps you didn't like it? Whatever you want to comment, feel free to leave it down below. All the links to the different books will be down below as well, so you can check them out. All the links to social media, all that will all be in the description box. Thank you so much, guys. Till next time. Thank you.